can even watch back, giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion, going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick Podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion, going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back, giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back, giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion, going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick Podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion, going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back, giving players all the props or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. The Eye Test with Pierre, McGuire, and Jimmy Murphy.
The Stanley Cup winning Colorado Avalanche. And after 22 years, Raymond Moore
The sickest NHL podcast. Brought to you by TCS Customs and Logistics. Moving pieces, delivering peace of mind. It's gonna be sick.
And welcome to another edition of the Eye Test here on the Sick Podcast Network. He is Pierre McGuire. I am Jimmy Murphy. Plenty of NHL news going on today. And obviously, too, we will get to the Stanley Cup final and look ahead to Game 4, Pierre. But we are going to be joined right off the bat here by our guest. And I don't know if he'll become a regular, but he's been on here a few times, and we're glad to have him back right now. And that's UMass Amherst hockey coach Greg Carvel joining us here on a day when his former player, Cale Makar, wins his second Norris trophy. Coach, how you doing?
Hey, good, Jimmy. Good to see you. Hey, Pierre.
Wait a second. You were a forward. You weren't a D, man. Come on. I'm only joking. By the way, Coach Carvel was one of the best defensive forwards we had. He reminded me a lot of Guy Carbonneau back in the day.
Ooh, that's high
praise. And he could score, too, a lot like what Carbonneau could do. So Cale came by his defensive awareness, honestly.
It's a lot easier to defend than to score. I knew that. For me, anyways.
Coach, I mean, look, we all know how great Cale Makar is. Now this is his second. He's already won a Stanley Cup, and, the accolades are surely going to keep coming for him. But when you think back, like when you see a moment like this happen, whether it was his first Norris or when he won the Stanley Cup or today, what goes through your mind most in terms of memories of coaching him and just seeing him play at a young age?
At this point, I don't know what can be said about Cale that hasn't been said.
Right.
But because I worked in the NHL for a long time before I came back to college, when I saw him play and I watched him practice every day, it was a treat just to watch him practice every day. And I would just say to myself, I didn't see this very often at the NHL level. And it was, he was young. He needed to get stronger and stamina and the rest of it. But his skating was just outstanding. He just did everything superbly well, and he was superbly humble through it all. And the thing that I loved about him, and you see it from time to time, is that he can pop guys. His second year at UMass, he would blow guys up all the time. And it was such a, to me, I struggle with skill guys that don't defend and don't play without the puck and, don't give as much to both sides of the puck. And Cale gave as much to the defensive side as he did the offensive side. And so I'll always respect him for the fact that he's a complete player and he's a team player. And you win with guys like that.
It's amazing, Jimmy. I listened to everything Coach Carvel just said. When he was really getting into the coaching business in Ottawa after his time in Anaheim in particular, he had a guy named Erik Karlsson.
Oh, yeah.
And he had to work with a guy named Erik Karlsson. And I would be willing to bet Erik Karlsson's a Norris Trophy winner and a heck of a player. First-round pick. Makar was picked before Karlsson. But offensively, probably similar. I don't think defensively there's any similarity at all.
No, not at all.
No.
Erik was I ran the defense in Ottawa his first 2 years, so I got to coach him and know him pretty well. And he's a riverboat gambler, and not a lot of not as much integrity without the puck. But there's lots of guys like that. So that's why Cale to me is he's unique. He's a Ray Bourque kind of player, Dennis Potvin, guys that you'd want it on the ice at all times because they're helping you at all times.
See, Jimmy, that's why I love having him on, because he has, unlike a lot of college coaches, he's got reference points to NHL where most guys never had that reference point, and he does. And so what Coach just said is so spot on. And I remember right after I had cancer surgery, Coach was kind enough to invite me up to watch one of those practices he's talking about at UMass. And I saw Cale Makar, and we were talking about it. And I just said, he's got to stay here one more year because it's too early for him to leave. Remember, Carv, we talked about that? Yeah. But you could see it, Jimmy. I'm telling you, the job they did with him at UMass was amazing. But you could see it like that first year, like, whoa, this guy's really good.
I remember you calling me that day, Pierre, after that happened and telling me about him and be like, you have no idea what I just saw, Jimmy.
Yeah, no, you could tell right away. And that coach nailed it. Like, he nailed it big time.
Yeah.
The first time I ever saw Cale Makar, I flew out. I just gotten the job at UMass in, I think, March, April. And I flew out in September to see Cale play. before I ever coached the game at UMass. And he came on the ice for warm-ups. And by the end of warm-ups, I called my assistants and I said, we have Eric Carlson coming to our team. Just so you know. I said, this kid's dynamic. That was before the puck even dropped. And at that time, I think he was just like a B-level prospect. And throughout that year, he kept rising. And I joked that our good friend who recently passed away, Ray Sherrill, the year of the draft, it was in Chicago, and I walked into the building that day, and Ray happened to be the first person I saw. And I said to Ray, I don't care. I don't know anyone else in this draft. I said, but take Cale Makar first. And he goes, Carby, if I do, you're never going to see him. I said, don't do it. You know, you're right. Take somebody else.
So they took Nico Hischier instead. It worked out pretty good.
Yeah.
So Carb doesn't know this part of the story. So after they had that discussion, Ray called me up and he says, hey, Makar or Hischier? I said, what's your biggest organizational need? And he said, well, we need both. I said, well, then you better talk to your scouts because I'm not getting involved. I said they're both really good.
You talk about just how great his practices were, and Pierre's taught me over the years that shows so much about a player and how it's going to translate into game action. But in terms of him as a leader, what did you see from him there during those practices? Because I imagine a guy like him probably led the way a lot.
No, he
Wow.
led. He led in that he just was one of the group.
Okay.
And I think that was a really stronger statement from him, is that he didn't get to the front of the line and be like, come on, follow this. No, he just, when it was his turn, he did things the right way and he did them hard. And he did not like to be out in front. He did not like to be singled out. I made the mistake one time of showing a clip. We were on an entry and Cale came in late, wide open. And I said to whoever it is, I said, you got to get Cale the puck here. Like, he's going to do something probably better than, I forget what I said. But after that video session, Cale just quietly said, Carv, please don't single me out like that. And
Wow.
it was just an example of
That's impressive.
his leadership was humility. And
well, I'm gonna double down on that. I'm gonna say I had a guy in Pittsburgh by the name of Mary Lemieux who was the very same, very, very, very same. And there was one time, I can tell you, I never saw a performance like this in a practice. We were in Vail, Colorado in training camp. Anybody that was there will tell you the same thing. They never saw a player play better hockey. And I've told that story forever and ever. And one day he just came up to me and said, hey, I really appreciate you telling those stories, but just can you do it when I'm not there? I'm like, yeah, of course I can. He didn't want anybody to know that he knew. So, yeah.
Coach, how much have you been able to watch of the Stanley Cup playoffs, the AHL, ECHL? I know you got former players all over the place there. What have you been focusing in on?
Just the NHL when I can. I've got a daughter who just graduated from high school.
Going to Colgate, Jimmy. She's going to Colgate.
Yeah, going to the gate. Graduation parties seem to be blocking my view of hockey games too often. But when you watch Florida, I just love Florida because they play the right way. They're hard. They check. All their guys check. They got 4 lines of guys that play the right way. And I try to instill in my team. I'm like, we need to be the Florida Panthers of college hockey. And, they've got really good players, but they don't have, the McDavids and Drysaddles, but they have really solid players. And I kind of equate it to UMass, where we don't have first-round draft picks, but we have really a good group of hockey players. And we just try to get all of them to play the game the right way. And the group understands that that's what's going to lead them to the next level. And I know you guys are going to ask me about, I think we had 5 forwards sign NHL contracts this year. And, it's good and bad. If they all came back, we'd probably be a, front runner for a championship next year. But, they come to UMass to develop, and it's our job to help them to get to the next level. And I thought we did a really good job this year with some great young men.
You did a really good job. I watched a lot of your games. I had the honor of broadcasting a lot of your games. It was a privilege to be in your arena. Can't wait to do that again next year. Got to ask you about John Leonard. John Leonard's playing his derriere off for Charlotte. They're in the American Hockey League final that starts on Friday night. Did you know he had this much game in him?
Well, he was the most spectacular goal scorer that I've had at UMass. It's not even close. Like his last year, he led the country in goals. I think he had 30 goals. And it was the year that COVID shut everything down in middle of March. And he was playing so well. I thought he was a Hobie Baker candidate. Like probably should have been a finalist for that. So John was a spectacular pull you out of your seat goal scorer. And so he's always had that right from day one. He just needed to play a more well-rounded game. And I know he's doing so spectacularly well because you don't often, stories from the American League don't usually work your way to the national level. And I've seen him, in different places. So the word's worked its way back to me. Happy for him. Really good kid, grew a lot with us. And just, again, his ability to put the puck in the net, I haven't had anyone better.
Yeah, no, and Charlotte, Jimmy, just for those that don't know, is Florida's farm team. Yeah. And like they got a lot of guys down there, and Leonard stood out this entire play. I've watched a lot of their games. He's really stood out.
Coach, you were talking about Florida there just before, and as you said, I want to just follow up quickly on that. When you see a team like them, you're just praising their style and how they play the game the right way, and they're not just focused on two stars. Is it great to have, you're trying to develop players. Is it great to have a Stanley Cup contender like that every year that plays the game that way, so you can kind of show the younger guys, this is how you do it. And look, you will be rewarded. It's not all about the points. If you work hard, you will be rewarded.
Well, I find myself every year around this time sending messages to my team saying, hard hockey wins. Hard hockey wins. Exactly. Whether it's Florida, Vegas, Tampa Bay, the hard teams win.
St. Louis, Washington, the hard teams win.
Yep. Hard teams win. So, it's a continual message that we've had for years and years at UMass. And, as time goes on, my time at UMass, we keep trying to fine tune it and get a team like the Florida Panthers, the deep group that all plays big and plays the right way.
That's so well said. I completely agree. Hard hockey does win. That's why the name of this show is the Eye Test, because you can't quantify a man's heart, you can't quantify his fearlessness, and you can't quantify his coachability. And if you got all three of those things, you got a chance to play. I completely agree. Hey, Coach, what about your goaltending situation? I know it's kind of been up and down. Where are you going forward?
Michael Harabel will be back for his third year. And, I know that Utah wanted to sign him. I think Michael is like, he's probably he's the second person since Cale Makar who told the NHL, no, I'm going to stay. Not many kids do that. And to me, it's a really sign of maturity that you don't feel pressure. Most kids, like NHL team tells them to jump, they'll jump, and I understand why. But Michael he's a goalie and he's young. He's still 20 years old. And Alan Walsh is his advisor, and, we see things the same. He's in a really good place. He's playing every game. We've got a good goaltending coach. He's a bright young man. He's got a very high GPA. He wants to get his degree. His parents are in education. They want him to get a degree. So it all adds up. He's in a really good place. And I expect him to be one of the top goalies in the country next year.
So do I.
He's gone through what I would have expected for 2 years, ups and downs. But, by the end of his second season, he should be starting to become consistent at a certain level. And the last half of the year, you saw that. I think after Christmas, he had close to a .940 save percentage or .935 or something. So up in elite numbers. And, we'll expect that next year. And I had a Zoom with him last week. I told him, I said, go home, spend a couple of weeks, and then we're going to talk about what you're doing, where your mind's at, and what we're going to do this summer in order to have a great year. And he very maturely figured out like he needed to get stronger in his core. A lot of it was physical. The thing I love about him is that he likes to be coached hard. He likes to be told directly to his face when you're not happy with him. Not many kids like that. So he's a really good combination. And I'm excited for him to see what he does this year.
Jimmy, you know what's really interesting too? A coach, this is for the younger people that are watching this and their parents. If you have the honor and privilege of playing in the World Junior, and Robbo's played in 2 of them now, that fouls up part of your season, and people don't realize what it does to you mentally and physically. And so he doesn't have to worry about that anymore. I think it's one of the most intelligent decisions a guy can make. If you get a chance to come back and you don't have to worry about that World Junior stuff, I'm telling you, I think he's going to have a massive year at UMass, no pun intended.
Yeah.
You're a mind reader, Pierre, because I was just going to say to Coach, what did you think about how that did help his game going over there this past year and just how he carried it back into UMass?
So what Pierre's alluding to is that the kids that go there, instead of going home for break, they go play the most intense emotional hockey at 19 years old. And then they've got to come back and they're spent. They're absolutely spent. A lot of kids get injured. And you saw that after the Four Nations tournament this year, right? A lot of guys got injured. Same thing.
Yeah.
So Michael, as a freshman, went, and 2 years in a row, he knocks Canada out of the tournament, right? And with freshmen, I'm always talking to them about their energy levels. You know, it's a long season. And Michael, as a freshman, straight through, how you feeling? It good? How's energy? Fine. Same as usual. And both of his years at UMass, he's been like that. He doesn't fall off, which is, to me, impressive. Whereas Don Zlashmelis, who his freshman year as a 4th-round draft pick of the Bruins, he was honest. He's like, I'm out of gas. And that's what most kids are like. So Pierre's point about Michael now being able to get that midseason break, I think it'll do wonders for him. You know, I think
and Jimmy, you know, and Coach knows this, and I have experience for a long. This Hockey East is another bag of tricks. This is not an easy league to play in.
Right.
You know, if you look at some of the guys that left Hockey East, whether they're playing in East Coast League, whether they're playing in American League, whether they're playing in the NHL, there was not a big learning curve for any of those kids. The numbers don't lie. You can go look at the stats.
Right.
There was a pretty seamless transition. Look at Coach just brought up Lashmelis, what he did in Providence. I'll talk about guys that left Northeastern, Dorrington and McGuire and all those guys and what they did. You look at the guys from University of Maine and what they did, the guys that left BU. There's not a big learning curve. That league is kind of like a pro league, Coach. I think you would agree.
I tell you what, and so I've been here 9 years. When I got here, I felt like there were only 2 teams that played really heavy hockey, and it was Lowell and Providence Providence won a national championship right around when I got there. I can't remember if it's before I got there or not.
Just before.
But now it's a Yukon, Maine. You know, you go down the list, like it's every night. I saw the Providence assistant coach just by chance. We were playing close to each other, and I saw him in a convenience store, and he's like, every night's a rock fight. It's just a rock fight, and it is, and it's great for the development of these guys.
It is, but it's hard on coaches.
Yeah. Yeah.
Coach, I got one final one. Oh, go ahead.
No, I missed it. When I played, they were just layup games. You knew you were going to win by 6 goals some nights. And
yeah, but you played on some juggernauts too. Let's be fair. You had some pretty good players and teammates.
Yeah, but the things weren't as tight as they are now.
No.
Coach, we saw some signings once the junior season ended, the Memorial Cup was over. We saw some big signings with players coming over to the college game. What's that buzz been like for you in the last 2 weeks, so to speak?
Not a lot of buzz for our program.
Okay.
You know, we didn't spend a lot of time up there. You know, I asked my assistant coaches, that's their job, is to secure players. And they said, we like the guys we have. We think the USHL is a great league. Our guys playing in that league, it's a tough league. You know, we're not going to get the high profile guys, just like the US high profile guys. We find the guys that work for us. We find that Europe has been a much better avenue for us. You know, Lashmelis and Suni have two sophomores that had 2 great years for us, and we've got some more international kids coming in next year. To be honest, we kind of looked at it. We thought we picked up a recruit that we really liked because he got pushed out of another program because they were bringing in so many CHL kids. So, you know, you got to just decide, you know, there's a lot of players out there. Believe me, I asked many times, like, why aren't we up in the CH? Why aren't you guys up in the rinks in the CHL? And they're like, we like our guys. So I got to trust them.
Oh, here's one thing I do know. They do have some guys from the CHL coming that are pretty good, though.
Yeah.
Not next year, but they do have some guys coming. That's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to speak on the coach. I'm just going to praise him and his assistants.
Right.
I know the kids they have coming, so they're good.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Well, Coach, we appreciate you taking the time. Always a pleasure. I hope the rest of your summer goes well, and we'll get you on down the road.
All right. Great seeing you guys.
Coach, I'll be in touch later today. Thank you for joining us.
Yep.
Thanks.
All right. UMass Amherst head coach Greg Carvel joining us here on the day one of his former players, Cale Makar, wins his second Norris, and something tells me, Pierre, I don't think it'll be his last.
No, but competition going to get frisky for him, because I'm going to tell you right now, Zach Werenski's pounding on the door. Josh Morrissey's pounding on the door. Quinn Hughes is pounding on the door. Jacob Slavin's pounding on the door. And I'll tell you, there's a guy in Montreal, Lane Hudson, that's pounding on the door.
Yep.
Lane he won't be ready next year to do it. It'll be the year after. But I think he's going to have company. There's a guy in Minnesota by the name of Brock Faber that's going to start coming up. And I think there's a guy that's going to go first overall this year, Matthew Schaefer, who's going to be banging on the door too. So you're going to see like this exponential growth. And this is why, Jimmy, since I've known you a long time, I really believe the league has to look at, just like they did with the forwards, the Selke Trophy for the best defensive forward.
I agree.
You know, and the Rocket Richard is basically for the best forward, the goal scorer. I think we got to go there in hockey with the defense. I think you got to have the Norris Trophy could be for the best defensive defenseman.
Yep.
And the Bobby Orr is for the best defenseman.
Yep.
Best defenseman.
I'm with you.
And I don't know if the league ever really wants to go down that road. I brought it up many, many years ago. And they said, yeah, we're a little interested, but we don't know. We don't want to mess with it. And
you know, it's interesting as you say that, Pierre. I was in, this was going to be my next question. Yeah. Do you think sometimes, and I don't mean to put you in a tough spot, so you don't have to answer this.
No, you ask me anything.
Okay. Do you think sometimes that the NHL, and I'll give them credit, I mean, we said it yesterday, great creativity with the way they've been presenting these awards. Really, I like sort of outside the box thinking that they've done. But do you think they need more of that at times? Are they too traditional in some respects, you know, in not changing the trophies up and everything like that?
I think they've done a good job, though, as time's gone on. Like, I'll never forget, I was at the first presentation of the Rocket Richard. I was at the All-Star game in Tampa.
Okay.
And that was fantastically well done by Commissioner Bettman and this whole team at that time. They added another trophy. And I know how hard the Montreal Canadiens and the journalists in Quebec really lobbied hard for that. And that's where I got kind of my idea for saying, hey, you know, I grew up in Montreal too. Like, I know, you know, I didn't hang out with Rocket Richard, but I had met him.
Right.
I had spoken to him. I knew his brother, Henri, really well. You know, I do a lot of the Canadiens functions in the summer with the golf events. So I knew all those older players, and they were amazing gentlemen. They were so proud to be part of the Canadiens. But I know how hard they lobbied to get the Rocket Richard trophy, Jimmy. And I think so, you know, I can't do it because I'm not on the inside anymore in terms of being on the national shows. But I do think somebody's got to get out there and lobby for another defense award. And I do believe appropriately it should be named after Bobby Orr. I truly believe that.
So, but you saying Quebec writers had a lot to do with the Rocket Richard one. So that means that
they lobbied hard, boy.
HWA can have a say then in this.
They really lobbied hard. They deserve. Okay. And I think Marc Defoy was a big part of that. I think Yvon Pedneau was a big part of that. There were a lot of guys. I think Réjean Tremblay was a big part of that. That, you know, and I kind of, when we had Frankie Agno, I used to read those guys all the time. They were fantastic writers, and they had really good perspective.
Right.
Matthias Brunet is another one that comes to mind. Like, really good writers, really talented people.
Yeah. Well, maybe the PHWA needs to get together on that soon and see what they can do. Because I agree with you. I think we need to go in that way, especially with the crop of D-men coming. So, all right, let's get to our sponsor. Oh, Pierre, quickly, one item I want to get to you before the sponsors, and you might get asked about it in our Q&A, but I want to ask you, news breaking today that Mario Lemieux and his ownership group are interested potentially in buying back the Pittsburgh Penguins. Just your initial reaction to that. I know you were the first I heard. Apologies to anyone else, but here on the podcast, I think it was dating back to last summer when you said at first that there could be something brewing with Fenway Sports Group looking to sell part of their ownership. And now it looks like it's taken on a bigger portion. I don't know what the breakdown is, but it looks like Mario Lemieux could get involved.
Well, I spoke to Mario 3 days ago, and we never talked about that.
Okay.
We talked about something completely different. And I've talked to people really close to the Penguin situation. None of that's come up.
Okay.
But when I was sharing with you was I had heard that, and that's why I shared it with our viewers and listeners, that I had heard that there's maybe some interest in Fenway moving on from the Penguins and trying to find another ownership group.
Well, we shall see.
I'll tell you one thing right now. I know Sam Kennedy's a friend of mine. I've known Sam. Sam was my intern when I coached Hartford Whalers. He's a president of Fenway Sports and Entertainment. He's magnificent at what he does. He's really good. Awesome human being, great businessman, great sports businessman. I think the Pittsburgh Penguins need Mario Lemieux back. I also think they need David Morehouse back, who works for the Pittsburgh Steelers right now. They need people that understand that community. And the fans there understand them.
Yes. Agreed.
That's all I'm going to say. I've told this a million times. I'll say it again. I've worked for different teams, but in my heart of hearts, I will always be a Pittsburgh Penguin.
There you go. And I think when you say, they need an owner that understands the community more, I like it. You say that, Pierre, because Pittsburgh, to me, it's not like your typical major big city in the U.S., right? It's more community. It's more hyper local, right? And so that makes a lot of sense that you would want somebody who gets that vibe, who understands how to work with that vibe.
Pittsburgh is the Steelers. It's the Strip District. It's the Hill District. It's the South Side. It's, everything about downtown. It's some of the great restaurants, the legendary restaurants they have there. I don't know maybe I'm biased. I probably am.
It's okay.
But, when you win in a city and you go back to that city a lot and you spend a lot of time with the fans and you spend a lot of time with your old players. I was at a wedding not this past weekend, the weekend before, and one of our old players, Davey Hannon, was there. And Davey still lives in Pittsburgh. He's unbelievable. I talked to Randy Hilliard a lot, another one of our former players. He's made way more money away from the rink than he ever made at the rink. He's an unbelievably successful businessman. And all his old teammates, he runs their money or a lot of it. So everything there kind of is cyclical. It all reverberates around for us, the hockey guys, anyways, it reverberates around the Penguins. And I do a weekly show there with the great Mark Madden, and it never gets old. I just think it's a unique market in the league. I really do.
All right. Let's get to our sponsor, Betway, where you can still go all the way with Betway on your first bet and get up to $200 credit, even if your first bet loses. Only available for new members. So if you're watching, look at the QR code right in front of you, sign up there. Or if you're not, you can go to the website when you get the chance, go to the details section, you create your new membership and redeem your welcome offer. You must be 18 plus to play. It's also not available in Ontario. Terms and conditions apply, and you must always bet responsibly with another day off. No pick tonight, but I've been working on some. I will have those ready for you tomorrow when we get to this point of the episode. And by the way, speaking of tomorrow, another great guest lined up. Pierre, we've got Deputy Commissioner of the NHL, Bill Daly, joining us tomorrow here on the eye test. And we will talk to him, obviously, about the Stanley Cup final and also some other interesting NHL topics that are going on right now. So looking forward to talking to Deputy Commissioner Daly here on the eye test. Let's get to our Q&A.
Excuse me.
Brian Brewster. What's up, Brian? If I recall, Brian, let me know in the section there if this is the Brian Brewster from Anaheim that I used to know many moons ago. Brian Brewster says, "Hi, gents. As a Rangers fan, what do you think a package of Keandre Miller and Lafreniere could fetch? A good player or an elite player, a la Jason Robinson? Thank you so much."
Wow. I think it's about a 4. I think if those two guys go in the same package,
You're getting a lot.
you're getting at least 5 components, 4 or 5, depending on what the value is. So I'm going to say draft picks are involved, probably one A-level prospect, and probably a very good established NHL player. But that's a substantial package. I think one guy hasn't gotten to the level he needs to, and that's Lafreniere. I think he may need a change of scenery if he does get moved. And the other guy, Keandre Miller, they got to find a way to redefine how he sees the game. He tries to do too much offensively. He could be, if you got the reins on him and really could get him sorted out, you'd have a heck of a player in your hands. But this is one of those where I've lived through it as a coach. You gotta have a player that's willing to accept coaching.
All right, next question. Chris TV, question for Pierre. What can you tell us about the new Penguins coach, Dan Muse? And is Mario involved in any big decisions that the organization makes?
I'll do the last part first. Mario's not involved in any decisions right now that the organization makes. Back in the day, when he was part of the ownership group, 100%. And I can tell you that I interviewed for the GM's job there once, but I had 3 different interviews, and Mario was involved in all of them. So when he was the owner, he and David Morehouse were extremely involved in everything that went on. In terms of Dan Muse, a kid from Boston, grew up in Canton, Mass, went to Canton High School, played hockey there, eventually found a way to be an assistant coach at Milton Academy, which is a top-end prep school. Made his way out to the USHL with Chicago Steel and also the U.S. National Team Development Program. He played college hockey at Stonehill College when they were not Division I, they were Division III. And the last little while, I spent a lot of time working for Peter Laviolette. He's more of an analytics guy. I think he speaks the same language as Kyle Dubas when it comes to evaluating players and processing the game. So I think that's maybe something Kyle Dubas was looking for. So my recommendation, I said this on Pittsburgh radio yesterday, really important for him to come out of the chute in training camp on top of it. Like, you can't have anything slipping away. It's got to be organized. You got to prove you're the boss, and you got to make sure the players are understanding you're the boss. It's really important without yelling and screaming at them. It's really important. So he's a very organized guy, and he knows the analytic part of the game really well. And he's been around some very veteran coaches.
All right, next question. Jorge Herrera. Hi, Jimmy and Pierre. I asked because I listen to pod while working. Do you think thanks for listening.
Yeah.
Do you think Brad Marchand signing with Florida, winning or losing the cup? If not, where do you see him landing? Thank you.
I could see Brad staying in Florida. I think there's more and more appetite for people talking about that. And I don't think it has anything to do with taxes. I think it has to do with the role that's been created, the respect that they have for him, and his love that he has for his teammates. It's a hard team not to like. You know, you heard Greg Carvel talk about it with his players.
Yep.
Hey, I want my guys to be the Florida Panthers of college hockey. And that's a big compliment coming from him, because he's built an amazing brand, whether it was at St. Lawrence or UMass. Everywhere he goes, he creates standards.
Yep.
So, yeah, I would say if I were betting on it, I would bet that he would stay in Florida.
I'm with you on that, Pierre. All right, next question. WPHL, who was the better Kostitsyn, Andre or Sergey?
That is a great question. I'm going to say potentially Andre was, but I think Sergey was better. But I think Andre had more potential.
All right. Whatever happened to them, Pierre?
One just retired.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I thought I heard one
playing over in the KHL
lately. Yeah. All right, next question. Juice _031017. Now that he's announced his retirement, what is your favorite TJ Oshie memory during his NHL career? I mean, everyone's going to point, Pierre, to the shootout in the Olympics in 2014. I don't really have a moment, if that's okay. I appreciated his desire and his passion. I just thought the guy was like, every time he went on the ice, something was going to happen, whether it was a big hit, whether it was a nice play. He just brought it every single shift. And that's what I'll remember about him most.
I don't want to get really too emotional here, but I'll try to pull it off. Watching him hoist the Stanley Cup in Vegas.
You're on the ice, right?
And yeah, I was there. And seeing how much it meant to him and his father.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
That's one of the, I remember all those different Brett Hedekin in 06. I remember it was an amazing interview at the end and how emotional he got. Timu in 07. Remember that. You remember them all because there were so many heartfelt moments that you do when you're doing those interviews at the end. But seeing TJ hold that cup and then, see him with his father was pretty special. It was really special.
Yeah, it was something. All right, next question. Alex Evanowski, do you think coaches in the NHL and maybe in sports in general need to unionize? I feel like it's never been more challenging to be a head coach in any sport, especially hockey. The GMs seem to have all the power.
There's no union for the GMs either, except they have unbelievable affiliation with the ownership group, so that protects them. There is an NHL coaches.
I was going to say, I thought
group.
there is.
They're not union. They're not unionized.
Okay.
I don't think the league would view that fondly, and I think that could be troublesome going forward. We can ask Bill Daly about that tomorrow. But
yeah, good
I do know that there is a coaching group, and George Kingston was a big part of that for a long time. Scotty was a big part of that for a long time, but they still function. And I think it's great, but I don't know if they can ever unionize. I personally would love to see it, but I don't think that'll happen.
Yeah, one thing I'll ask you too, Pierre, before we move on to the next question. We're seeing in the past, let's just say dating back to COVID, we're seeing a few coaches, and I'm sure it happened before that. It wasn't as public, but a few coaches look like maybe they're safe. And then after meetings between the GM and the players speaking out against him and the coach being shown the door. Not that I don't think players should have a say. I have no problem with that. But has a coach lost all his leverage in a situation like that right now? That's what I'm worried about.
It depends on the organization. Some organizations don't pay attention to that.
Okay.
Some do. Here's what I would say. This is my only cautionary tale to the GMs that run their businesses that way. Once you do that, just so you know, you're next. You may have got the coach this time, but you're going to be next.
Right.
Just telling you.
Good point. All right, next question. Steve Lash, Emily Kaplan, and a few others are reporting that a trade is being finalized between Chris Kreider and the Ducks for a prospect and a pick. We'll wait for the full trade, but your thoughts on Kreider potentially going to the Ducks?
Joel would know him really well, Joel Crenville, and he'll be on with me on the CBS Sports Network tomorrow at 12:15 p.m., which we're really excited about having Joel on CBS HQ tomorrow on television. That's a great question. So Chris is a pro. Chris has been in the Stanley Cup final. There's a sense of familiarity with he and Killorn. He's a Matt Cater guy. Kreider is. So there again, Leo Carlson's there. Go down the line. There are a lot of Cater guys that are in Anaheim. So I would say that that'll work out well short term for Anaheim. I don't want to say who the prospect is. I have a pretty good idea of who the prospect is. He's a real good skater. He's got good size. He can do some things, but he's not totally refined. And I would have to think at least a second round pick's going back, maybe even a first.
Mm-hmm. There's also reports involving this trade that looks like it's going to go down, Pierre, that Anaheim is going to pick up the full tab on Kreider's salary.
Well, they have plenty of room to do it.
Right, but I'm just thinking, did they do the same thing for Trouba, or was it a portion?
I think Trouba was all in. And again, that's such a good point you're raising. So there's been a level of communication between Drury and Verbeek.
That's where I'm going.
And then the other part, Jimmy, is Drury's brother, Teddy, played with Verbeek and Hartford when I was coaching them.
Wow.
So Chris would have been in a lot of those games. He would have been around, especially in the 93, 94 year. He was just going to BU. So, yeah. So there would have been probably some
Whining, so to speak.
Yeah. Intertwining.
Chris is going to owe Pat a nice steak dinner soon. All right, let's go. Next question. Pearl of Wisdom. Would treating coaches like that lessen the pool of coaches you could hire?
No, because there'll always be people. No, Perlo, because people will always want to coach in the league. There's only one NHL. There are 32 jobs. It's a sprint every year. Like I'll tell you right now, nobody had Dan Muse going to be the head coach of the Pittsburgh Panthers. Nobody did.
Yeah.
His name wasn't on any lists at all.
No.
None.
All right, next question. Big guy, Matthew Schaefer, having played only 17 games for the Erie Otters and being injured for Team Canada during the World Juniors and having mono earlier in the season, do you see him playing right away with the Islanders or going back to Erie?
Here's what I would say to that. If he goes in and knocks it out of the park in training camp, I think they keep him for 9 games. And if he's good in those 9 games, they keep him. If not, they send him back and let him play another World Junior. But I think they keep him. They let him play. They let him practice. They get an idea of where his level is, his conditioning levels, his strength levels, his capacity to learn quickly. So I would say he's got some runway to go on. And then if they like it, they keep him. And if they don't, goes back to junior and plays in the World Junior.
All right, next question. B. Smith. Is Pascal Vincent an option for Dallas, given how much we were hearing his name before Laval's playoff run ended?
I keep hearing Pascal's going somewhere as an assistant.
Really?
But yeah, I've heard that a bunch.
Wow.
Could he be it for Dallas? Yeah, he's a tremendous coach. I'm trying to think of a tie in there with Jimmy Nill and with his staff there. So I'm going to still say I think Neil Graham's got the inside shot. He's been running their farm team down in Texas, in Austin. And they just lost. They lost to Abbotsford, but they got a lot of young players there. And Neil's done a good job. He's been there a while now, 6 years, I think 5 or 6 years. So, but I think Pascal is going to get another job, but I don't think it's going to be as a head. I could be wrong, but I think he's going to get an assistant job.
All right, next question. Juice _031017. Pierre, what was it like coaching the 92 Penguins, going down 2-0 and then 3-1 and then coming back to win the series in 7?
It was great to have star players that listened to coaching. Scotty was really smart. As a staff, we came up with a real good plan against Washington that had Al Iafredi and Sylvain Cote and, a lot of really good offensive players, Calle Johansson, Kevin Hatcher, really good offensive defensemen. And we changed our forecheck between Game 4 and Game 5 at the old Marriott Hotel right by the rink in Landover. And we ran it by Mario, and Mario went and ran the meeting the next day, and we never looked back. But, yeah, it was different. There's no question it was different.
Yeah. All right, next question. Juice _031017. Should the Blackhawks sign Bedard to an extension this offseason?
I don't know why they wouldn't. He's their first overall pick. He's a picture of their franchise, the face of their franchise. I would say that sooner you get it done, the better. And especially coming off what would be a haphazard kind of a year. He wasn't great this year. He was just okay.
Don't let that linger at all. Just do it.
Yeah.
All right, next question. B. Smith. Can any team go after the reffing association for a lack of quality in their calls? For example, sort of like a lawsuit with momentary compensation. It is clear Florida is getting away with way more. B. Smith, appreciate the questions, but trust me, they're not. There's no favoritism going on. It's not. Yeah, Florida's getting away with way more because they know how to get away with it. That's what I'd say.
No, there are no lawsuits. Everything's adjudicated through the commissioner's office, so there are no lawsuits on that.
Yeah. Okay. Next question. Pearl of Wisdom. Would you take a Barkov over Draisaitl if there was a choice?
So it depends on what you're looking for. See, this is where beauty's in the eye of the beholder. So Draisaitl's an amazing offensive player. He is, and he can play center, he can play wing, and he's elite on the power play. Barkov's never going to get 52 goals. Not like what Draisaitl did this year. He's not. That's not his game. But Draisaitl's going to win you the Selke Trophy a lot. He's going to win. Draisaitl's never winning that trophy. He's probably going to win. He's winning the Rocket Richard. So they're two different kinds of players. I like the Barkov player because it's not a knock on Draisaitl. It's just like I really like Bergeron. Bergeron was a second-round pick.
Yeah,
I always like Bergeron. I've been leading the Bergeron fan club forever.
Mm-hmm.
So, I like those kinds of players. I grew up in Montreal when they had Jacques Lemaire and they had Doug Riseborough and they had Doug Jarvis and they had all these industrious center icemen that were unbelievable. But they weren't better than some of the guys in the league, but they were really good. And they kept winning Stanley Cup after Stanley Cup after Stanley Cup because they would overwhelm you down the middle with consistency.
All right, next question. Juice. And sound the siren. I'm with you. I'm gonna just call you Juice from now on. Juice, make it quicker. We know who it is. Will you guys be doing a live show from the NHL draft in LA on draft day? Juice, that is very much up there.
If the draft's still going on there.
Yeah.
If the draft's still going on there, we will be doing a live show, and then I will be working for Jeff Merrick and with Jeff Merrick, covering the entire draft on the sheet. So. I got approached by Jeff and his group last night, and I agreed to terms with them. So I'll actually be doing Jeff's show from the time it starts, the draft starts, to the time the first run ends. So it's about 3 hours. I'll be doing 3 hours with
Great
Jeff.
stuff. We'll remember that. When you have all the links and info, Pierre, remember to send it to me, and I'll get that out there for you. All right, that's it. Want to thank UMass Amherst head coach Greg Carvel for joining us. Always a pleasure to have Coach Carvel on the show. Big thanks to Shane working the boards up in Montreal. Thanks to all of you for your questions and for everyone listening and watching at home. Pierre, another off night. You're going to just any relaxation?
I got to be in the CBS studio early tomorrow, so I'm taillights and dust bright and early tomorrow.
Get some sleep, my friend.
I'll be calling you tomorrow morning.
Stay out of that humidity too, all right, buddy?
Yeah, no kidding. Today was tough.
All right. He's Pierre McGuire. I'm Jimmy Murphy. We will talk to you tomorrow on the Eye Test on the Sick Podcast Network.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Eye Test with Pierre McGuire and Jimmy Murphy on YouTube, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.